All right, so we talked a little bit about DOM and manipulating existing items, but you can actually use the DOM to create new items as well. So as of right now, all I've shown you is we've been doing things like document.getElementById or document.style this X, Y, and Z children. But you can literally use JavaScript to actually call the document and use this method off of it called createElement and then just pass in whatever that HTML element should be. So if we console log this, you can see right here, we've created a new article element. So I will try to do that. I'm not sure how much this page is going to let me do, but if I do document.createElement, let's create an image and let's set the style. Man, okay, let's try this. Cool. I probably should have given it a variable name. Var hello p equals, and then we'll come on over hello p dot style dot height equals 500 pixels. Hello p dot style dot width equals 500 pixels. Hello p dot. I don't know if you can set background color. Let's just try that. Let's see what happens. So obviously it doesn't error out. I can't see my my image. So this is the unfortunate nature of doing this stuff on a page that we don't necessarily. So it did create it. Can you take me there? No. Can we change the source? Hello p dot src equals. Okay, let's try and find one of my favorite puppy pictures. Cool. I'll do the little golden retriever today. Oh shoot. Cool. Puppy picture, where are you? Okay. Yeah. So I don't know where that is, but if I go and I console log that again, it comes up with that HTML element that I just created. So we can see here the style is the height is equal to 500 pixels, the width is 500 pixels, and even right here, I've set the source equal to that puppy picture. Now, unfortunately, I don't know where the heck it is, but it is here on the page because I'm able to just console log it. So if we try the same thing in our plain HTML document, let's go ahead and open that again. Let's just run through that same thing I did. There we go. And then, there we go. So, oh, I never appended it. That's what the problem was. Document.append hello. Only one element on document.children at 0. JavaScript. Isn't that nuts? I did not. There's no image tag in here at all, right? Like there's no. I'm not tricking you guys. Like I promise. I just use my DevTools browser. I set this variable. I said, hey, HTML document, create this element of image. Now that I have access to this variable name, I can say I want you to grab this. It's essentially an object. Just think of it as an object. Grab this object's style key, and then I want you to set that style keys. It's a nested object. So again, like the reason we had you guys doing the CCF data structures is because this is the way all of this stuff breaks down. It's not as simple as just you can kind of just like, oh, this is a image tag, and you just go in there and it's like document image. It's not as easy as that, right? Like we have to break it down, so it's the document, and then we go into the children, the actual HTML elements that like make up the entire page, and then we have to go in. So this is an array. Let's see, we're looking array. So it's an array of objects, and then in those objects, there's more objects, right? So like this is why the CCF data structures thing was so prevalent, even though you didn't maybe realize it, is because what I'm doing right now is the same thing that you would do to solve a lot of the problems in that repository. We're hitting these specific values and we're setting them. So I guess in CCF data structures you would actually just like record these, or you would return them. But instead of returning or recording them, what we're doing is we're actually setting them. Because in this instance, I have worked with a DOM before, and I know exactly where these keys are. And so what I did is I just declared this variable globally inside of this HTML document, created it. I said set the style and height equal to 500 pixels. Now I called the same thing, so I entered that in, and the browser still retains that memory of that variable that we've set. So even though I hit enter and nothing showed up, I still was able to enter in the source, and that's how we got the puppy picture, obviously. But finally, the thing that I totally forgot is that off somewhere in the abyss, this puppy picture was floating around, and finally what I needed to do is take the HTML document and append that weird abstract image that we had just created that didn't actually have a parent, and I appended it to the actual HTML document itself. So actually that errored out. What I had to do was grab the HTML document itself, and then I had to go to the very first child of it, and then I appended it. So that's how we eventually got this puppy picture over here on the left. But yeah, the HTML document is separate from DOM, and that's why I call the DOM an API, because it's not necessarily like always completely one-in-one with HTML. But when we created this object, this HTML element with JavaScript, we had to tell the HTML document, like, hey, append this to yourself. Like, I'm ready for you to bring this HTML element in. I'm done with it. Similarly, if I wanted to, now that it's appended, I could just come in and I could say hello p dot style dot height equals 1,000 pixels, and now it's stretched, because I was changing it. Everything I was doing before was happening. It's just that the HTML document didn't know about it. We didn't append it to the HTML document yet. It was just a child of nothing. So now that it is a child of something, it's the child of the HTML document, we're able to visually see exactly what we're changing here on this picture. And now if I wanted to come in and I said hello p dot parent node, or maybe parent element dot remove child. Hello p. I brought you into this world, I'll take you out of it. The same way I was able to just append that puppy picture to the document right here. I'm able to say hello p, that puppy picture, dot parent element, grab your parent overarching containing element, and run this dot remove child function on your child, hello p. So it's kind of weird to look at this, but essentially what you can do is just kind of ignore hello p. You can think of it as like we're just grabbing the parent, And it's essentially saying to its child, in this case the puppy picture, I'm just removing you. So that's what I did, is I was able to completely remove that from the parent element of the HTML page. Now if I console log, I actually don't know what this is going to output. We get back the image. So let's try appending it back. Hey! So the image is still there. All I did was I just removed it as a child to the HTML document. And again, I am not tricking you guys. This is my HTML page. If I refresh this, everything goes away. This is all DOM. This is all JavaScript. Everything I just showed you and did was all JavaScript. We're manipulating HTML, we're changing CSS, but we're using JavaScript to do it. So that was a very verbose way to show you how document.createElement works. Again, there's a lot of these keys off of these objects that we can use to change and manipulate these things based upon what we want to do, as long as we're aware of these. And if you're ever lost, W3 is awesome. So we have W3 has DOM methods. Let me bring this up a little bit. So here we can change the inner HTML, the p tag. I already showcased that to you guys. Come on, W3. What are you doing? What's a bomb? JavaScript browser bomb? Okay. JavaScript bombs. Alright, that's new to me. Okay, so what I did is I clicked on DOM document over here in W3, and we get the HTML DOM document object. So this is what we've been messing with the whole time. We have adding and deleting elements. These are methods. So I don't know why when I click on DOM methods, it shows me like 2 things, and then I come over here and it shows me like literally 5 different methods. But yeah, there you go. Go away. There you go. Event handlers. This is what I was talking about earlier. Right here, remember when we saw that that dot on click was null? Right here, this person is saying, actually, get this element, and then I want that dot on click to equal a function. Just like I said, like earlier, where you console log it when you click it. This is an event handler from DOM. So finding the HTML objects, document dot blah 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 blah. But I want to get you guys JavaScript DOM attributes. Here we go. No. I'm trying to find a really good reference for you guys, because over here, obviously, if I was to click on, or pardon me, if I was to console.log the document children at the first index, I'm getting the, okay, let's go back to the public picture one real quick so I can illustrate my point. Pardon me real quick. Cool, so over here, if we console.log LOP. Oh my gosh. What I'm trying to do is get, so this is why I was trying to find a good reference for you guys, because in order to kind of see what you have access to in the DOM, you kind of have to console log the HTML collection. Thank you. There we go. This is what, so I feel like if my memory serves me correctly, there is somewhere on this W3 website that shows you all of these different things that you have access to. But at the end of the day, they do honestly kind of mean different things. So like this, my favorite right here, on click, this is an event handler. So it's not necessarily like a DOM attribute. So like when we come over here, the reason when I click on like DOM events, I don't see things like style is because these are all part of DOM right here. This is the entire DOM, right? In this HTML collection from access key down to version, this is all part of the DOM, but all of these different keys mean different things. So when I go to W3 and I click on DOM events, I see a lot of those same things. So over here, my favorite, we have, where's on click? Is it just click? Double click. We're gonna make. Oh yeah. There we go. And then, what are you doing to me? Why? Deep breath. That doesn't make any sense to me. But okay, so we clicked on click, and it showed us on click. Yeah, this is the one I was trying to find. Thank you guys. So again, here, this is a DOM event. This is not necessarily the same thing as a DOM element. We'll find the same thing. So again, access key. If I go back, we have access key at the top. So this isn't an event handler. It's not a DOM event, right? So these are all part of the DOM, but all of these things mean different things. So you'll probably have to look into this documentation a little bit yourself to see exactly what kind of things you want to be manipulating. But like, the cool thing about this is if you don't know or you don't want to add like any of these things, by default, all of these load in null. So like if you're like, I don't want to touch any of this, I just want a very simple DOM thing where like I click on the puppy picture and it changes the source, that's possible. I just want to let you guys know that all of these DOM keys and all of these different events are available to you, and in case you guys forget, you can always console log some sort of HTML collection that will give you access to all of these in the DOM. So again, what I did, and I will refresh this, so we're at a completely blank console log document. Open this up. Nothing here, right? No picture. There's a script unknown. It's actually not loading anything. We have nothing. If you ever want to see all of those DOM keys that you can access, all you have to do is just console log the, if you spell it right, document.children, because that returns an HTML collection, which is a DOM data type. This is JavaScript. There's no such thing as an HTML collection in HTML. There's no such thing as an HTML collection in CSS either. It's a collection is a lower level data structure that I don't want to get into right now, but in JavaScript it's super cool because we can just treat it like an array. So when I click on that and I go to the 0 index of this array, the HTML, so why does this say Node.js? Because it says it right here. Now it doesn't say that. I just remembered I can put spaces. Why does that say Node.js? Because we had Node.js as the class name. So again, this could be anything. It could not be there. Again, this is just our HTML tag. Gosh darn it. HTML. Does not matter what you name it. Node.js just comes up because that's the boilerplate. That's how the person that wrote that extension has it. But like it literally does not mean anything. Please do not feel like you can't write JavaScript because it's there. That is not how that works. So again, like if you ever are lost, you want to figure out like what methods you have access to, what things you can change on the DOM. You just have to console log the document's children because that returns a DOM data type, a DOM structure that you can then click on and go into and then access all of those methods. If I just console log document, that actually returns the HTML, the entire HTML. So this isn't JavaScript. This is actually just HTML, right? Like I can come in here, and this was a problem I was running into just a couple minutes ago. I'm console logging HTML. This is not DOM. I'm console logging HTML. I'm using JavaScript to console log it, but this isn't DOM. This isn't JavaScript. This is HTML, right? So if we want to get a reference to a JavaScript data type on the DOM, we just have to call it on children to get it to return this collection data type upon which we have access and we can visualize all of these DOM methods and keys and whatnot. Cool. So append child, I showed that to you guys. I used that to get the puppy picture onto the document. Insert before, that I'm guessing is very similar to append child, but essentially what you do is you insert an HTML element, and then this should come before, and then you insert the actual element that should come before that element, right? So like, again, there's a lot of stuff you can do with DOM. Clone node. Nodes, again, are kind of abstract lower level data structures that we don't need to get into, that JavaScript is just going to teach us an HTML element. Remove child, I showed that to you guys to get rid of the puppy picture. Replace, create element. So if we have updated article, new article, it's going to replace the updated article with the new article, so on and so forth. All right, so right here we have an exercise. So I am in Intro to DOM, creation and deletion, and at the bottom there is this challenge. So we're back in JS Fiddle. How much time do we have? 8 to 10. Right here, the very first thing I do when I come to a problem like this is I always want my eyes on the problem. So I don't know what I need to do when I come to this page, right? Like I can look up here, it says I need to remove it, okay, like whatever. So the very first thing I do is I actually go back. Right here it says, go here and do this. Cool, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to copy this. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to go to my JavaScript, and I'm just going to move this down a bit. I'm going to paste that in. Now everything's going to error out because it's reading it as JavaScript, but I'm going to use command / to comment everything out. If you're on Windows, it's going to be control /. And so now I have a reference to what I need to do, right? It makes it a little bit easier. So what I need to do is I need to remove the entire div with the class of remove me, okay? I need, let's just actually do that right now. So knowing what we have gone over with DOM, I can go ahead and type document. And I can go ahead and type in children. So now I know I am somewhere within this HTML document. So I actually don't know. Let's figure out where I am. Let's console log it. All the errors are gone. Now JS Fiddle is very finicky. You do have to make sure you are opening and closing all of your brackets. That could lead to errors, but if everything works out here, we should be able to see what the document's children is. So, yeah.
When I went to comment out what I pasted in, it
hit Control Z. Here, so I undid it. Here, hang on. Let me, and then highlight the text and then try it again. All right, yeah, I'll make sure to help you out with that after this. But although it's not readily apparent, again, so what I just did is I copied and pasted in the steps that I need to follow in order to complete this challenge, and then I came in here and I did console.log document.children because we know that gets us access to that HTML collection that makes up the HTML entirely. But in JS Fiddle, when I sit here and I keep clicking run, nothing is happening. So like, what's going on? Why am I not seeing my console log? It's actually in your console. So again, you need to bring up your dev tools. Guess what? We have our HTML collection in the terminal. In the terminal, yes. So right here we can see that the HTML collection is made up of the HTML. This is probably not what I'm looking for, but it's a good start because my console log is working. It is actually working. So if I console log document.children and I run that, what do I get in the console? I get two elements. Get the head and the body. Okay. Well, the body was at indices 1. Whoa. Indice 1. What does that make up? Now, of course, you don't need to do this. You could actually just do the same thing with a query selector. You do document.querySelector. Again, this is a wildcard. This is definitely more of like if you know what you're doing, it's a very quick and easy way, but it's also just like it's going to act in ways that you might not anticipate. So if you're not comfortable using query selector, it's better to use methods like get the element by the ID, class name, tag, so on and so forth. But I know what I'm doing, so I'm going to go ahead and use document.querySelector.remove me, and I'm going to assign that to a variable var test equals document.querySelector.remove me. So I will go ahead and console log this. One thing I love to do with my JavaScript console logs is I always annotate them in some way. So I will say that this is the first log in this console log, and then I will write another console log, and I will say second log. This makes it much easier to read it in the terminal, and it's a lot less data that just kind of just gets thrown in your face. So we can go ahead and console log the second log with test. And we will go ahead and run that. So again, don't forget, nothing is going to change, but we can go ahead and open our developer console. So here we have our first log, which is an HTML collection. If we go back, what is that? That's a good question. Okay. Real quick, I will show you. But you can see our second log just simply returned that div that we're trying to remove. So there's a lot of ways of doing this. But I will close this. Right here, what I did to get that first log is I just grabbed the HTML document. I went into its children at the first indice, which brought us into the HTML document itself. And then I said, at the first indice of your children, I want you to console log the children. So knowing that now, we can go back. So what does that make up? Again, right here, remove me. So now that I know that the 0 indice of this array, of this HTML collection array is remove me, I could similarly grab the exact same element by just saying at the 0 indice I want you to console log that. So now when I run this, and I hit the right buttons, did I accidentally enter any code? No. I entered in completely different lines, right? I grabbed document.children at 0, children at 1, children at 0. That's my first log. The second log is simply me just using a query selector to grab a class of remove me. So I did the exact same thing with completely different methods. So again, in the console, I have the exact same thing. But if we go ahead and look at those console logs again, we can see these are entirely different methods. Let's pull this over so we can see these all in one line. So those are the two different logs I just did in my console. We can either just go straight to the source, to the HTML parent element, and we can just say, let me grab your document, that's 0, go to the body, and then go to the very first element that occurs in the body. Or we can use a query selector, and we can say, I just want you to grab a dot class. Dots are classes because they're straight to the point. IDs are hashtags because they're hid. That's how I remember it. It doesn't make any sense, but I always remember like IDs are hidden or like they're hid, so it's like HID, hashtag IDs. Classes are straight to the point. You use a point. Right up here we have class remove me. Similarly, if I just change this to ID, and I come down here and I do a hashtag and I just hit Command S, thank God it didn't do anything. I'm so used to doing that. We get the exact same thing. Now, why is the first log returning the same thing? Because I'm not actually grabbing it by the ID. I'm going and I'm telling the HTML tree exactly where to go. As I move down the entire HTML tree, that's my first log. I'm still grabbing the same thing. I could put the ID as whatever. It doesn't matter. But the second log works because I am using the query selector to grab the hashtag, which means ID, remove me, and I'm still able to log that. Now, to illustrate my point, I will go ahead and change this back to a class, and I will run it again. And now my second log will not work because I'm using a query selector to try and grab an ID when I should be using it to try and grab a class. So there's a lot of different ways of grabbing elements. Get elements by class name. When you are grabbing a specific element with DOM, you actually do not need to pass in this selector. So that's the thing about query selector is if you're using query selector, you can use it to kind of pass in those CSS selectors. So like in CSS, if we had a class of remove me, we would do the same thing. It would be a point remove minus me. If we were in CSS and we had an ID of add minus me, it would be hashtag add minus me. It's the same thing in CSS, right? So if you're using a query selector in JavaScript, it's the same thing. But since we're explicitly saying right here that we just want to get the element by the class name, we actually do not need to pass in that period because JavaScript already knows we're talking about that, that class, right? We don't need to pass in a class selector if we're already selecting classes. That doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So let's go ahead and run this. So in my second log, again, I get an HTML collection. Does anybody know why I got an HTML collection? I hinted at this before. What I want to get is the same thing. So at the top here, I get my div, but why am I getting a HTML collection here? By using this method, what am I missing here? It's kind of hard because we don't have a lot of experience with DOM, right? But if I was to go over here, as a matter of fact, I'm just going to type in DOM get elements by class name. What does this do? I don't know. I don't remember. Okay, well, that's what I wrote, so I probably don't need to look at that. But it returns a collection. That's why. Okay, so if I know it's returning a collection, and in JavaScript I can treat that as an array, what if I just pass in the 0 index to this array? And I run that. I love JavaScript. Similarly, we can do get element by ID. This does not return a collection, but we can still just pass in a plain string. So by using this specific DOM selector, we do not need to pass a hashtag in because it already knows we're talking about IDs. This does not return a collection because the telltale sign is that this is not plural. That's typically the way you could differentiate in your brain if you kind of forget at a moment's notice. So if we go ahead and run this again, we will get the exact same console log. on the same element. So if I wanted to remove that element, I would probably just need to do test.parent node.remove child test. Similarly, you could do the same thing here with document. If you wanted to tunnel all the way down, you could do document.children at 0, .children at 1, .remove child at 0. Well, whatever. Yeah, you guys get the point. So we've removed that first div, so we've completed that. We've completed this first one. Cool. So let's add a class of galvanized link to the link in the footer. So where is it? Right here. So we need to add a class to this A tag. Cool. I am going to use my knowledge of query selector, and I'm just going to type in document.query selector, and I am just going to pass in an A tag, because as luck would just so have it, that's the only one on the page. So just to make sure this is working, I'll do var test2 equals that. We don't need to remove that anymore, and I can go ahead and console.oog test2. Don't need these anymore. I'll go ahead and run that. So what are we dealing with now? Query selector. That's great. Similarly, if you did not want to use query selector to grab the singular A tag on this page, you could do document.get element by tag name. Get elements by tag name. So again, we can infer by this being plural, it's going to return a collection. And as who would have thought, it returns a collection, right? So this is how, you would need to treat this as an array, but we can do the same thing. So let's go ahead, and I'm actually going to copy and paste that. That's our other one. Swoop. Run. Dang. It's an HTML collection. I grab the same element, but now it's in that array. So in order to escape this array, I need to tell JavaScript, I want you to grab the 0 index of this array. Every array starts at 0. It's just the way the computers work. It's the way that they are stored in the memory. If you find a way to do it elsewise, let me know. For now, you could probably just stick with doing the way Brendan Ike designed it and just referencing the first thing you find with 0. So I will run the exact same code, and what would you know, we have the exact same thing. So we could go ahead, and I previously looked this up. I don't know if I even still have it up. I probably don't, but I was able to figure out there is a method where you can just call test2.className is equal to galvanized link. Boom. Run. So it changes colors for us, so that way we know that something happened there. Now, it might look like that was magic, but what really happened is CSS took over. So if we look at the CSS, we see this dot, which means it's a class. So when we added this galvanized link class to this A tag, it made it so this CSS grabbed that A tag based on its class and applied this color tomato. That's a good color, and it gave it no text decoration. Do we get any sort of? Oh no, that's right. JS Fiddle doesn't. But we could do like font size. Nope. That's how we know it's working. It's not magic. If you're able to solve this and you're like, whoa, how did they do that? It's because when you applied that class of galvanized link to here, you didn't even realize that this CSS was already there. It just wasn't affecting anything. But now you've given this A tag that CSS class, well, pardon me, it's not a CSS class, it's an HTML class that CSS uses. So it's an HTML class, we gave it that HTML class, and now CSS is like, hey, I just found this element that has this class that matches with what the styling is doing. So that's why it changes the color, and that's why we're able to do things like font size is equal to 50 pixels. But if I go ahead and rerun this with a typo, we go ahead and see it goes back to normal. So I'll undo that, and tomato is an interesting color, but I like blue. Is there? Oh yeah. Did I do that?
No, it's part of their script.
Really? Huh. There you go. That's attention to detail right there. I like that. So it's 8:30. Similarly, we can go ahead real quick. Test2.href. I'll give you the galvanize.com. So when I scroll over this and I look in the bottom left, it just says JS Fiddle, blah, 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 right? So using DOM, let me pull this over. Using DOM, I'm able to call that .href off of that HTML element, and I'm able to set it to galvanize.com. So again, just says JS Fiddle in the bottom left, run. Look in the bottom left, it says galvanize.com. This is DOM. Add an H1 element to the top of the page. Document dot create element H1 dot append child. This, I think that's a little scrappy. Yeah, I don't even know if that's okay, but yeah, you guys get the point. I don't want to keep you guys here past 8:30. I'll stop that recording.